Every Sunday, he sat in the same corner of the laundromat, folding silence and heartbreak into neatly stacked clothes. Ethan Brooks, 27. Introverted graphic designer, never expected a new cycle to begin with a woman 11 years older. But when Clara Hayes, elegant, guarded, and quietly lonely, asked him to come home with her, his life stopped spinning in place. This isn't just a love story. It's the story of how routine became connection and how two souls out of sync with the world finally fell into rhythm with each other. The hum of machines was the soundtrack to Ethan Brooks's Sunday mornings. The laundromat on Ashford Street wasn't anything special. Its cracked tile floor, pale fluorescent lights, and occasional clunk of quarters hitting metal gave it a lived-in, time-worn feel. It wasn't a place people came to for conversation or company. That's exactly why Ethan came. At 27, Ethan had built his life around small rituals. Wake at 800 a.m. sharp, make black coffee, feed his cat, basil sort laundry pack, his sketch pad, and walk 3 blocks to the laundromat with headphones in and no intention of talking to anyone. The routine offered predictability, control, things he hadn't felt in months, not since the breakup. 3 years with Marissa had taught him what it felt like to be tangled in someone else's chaos. When she left, citing his emotional distance and her need to find herself, he didn't fight her. He just folded back into solitude where things made more sense, where people didn't leave. But Clara Hayes had disrupted that without even trying. He noticed her the second Sunday after the breakup. She was folding a stack of white linens with elegant precision, wearing dark jeans and a navy peacoat, sleeves rolled a ball and up, just enough to reveal a silver bracelet that clinked when she moved. She had the kind of face that made you stare too long, striking angular with the expressive eyes that looked like they'd seen too much and kept most of it private. She was older than him, that much he guessed right away, not by decades, but enough to carry herself with a confidence he envied. She was always reading. The first time it was Franny and Zoe, Another Week, Beloved, Another, a worn copy of the collected poems of Sylvia Plath. She never looked around nervously, the way others did in public spaces. She didn't fidget with her phone. She didn't seem to notice him at first, and maybe that was why he noticed her. Their first actual interaction was fittingly about a broken vending machine. Ethan had been trying to get a bottle of water, smacking the side of the glass like that would change physics. She appeared beside him quietly suddenly, and without a word gave the machine a gentle nudge near the coin slot. The bottle dropped. He turned surprised. "Thanks." She smiled faintly. "Old trick. This machine's been temperamental for years." "You come here a lot." "Every Sunday," she said, tilting her head as if she were only just noticing him. "You too." That was all. She walked away back to her folding station, and Ethan spent the next 30 minutes pretending to sketch in his notepad while watching her from the corner of his eye. It became a rhythm. Every Sunday at 10 a.m., she'd be there, usually before him, and they'd share the same space like parallel lines. He started to look forward to it, though he'd never admitted aloud the way she read with total absorption, the way she sometimes whispered phrases under her breath as if tasting them, the way she folded her shirts precisely, not a wrinkle left behind. He didn't know her name yet. He didn't ask. Maybe that was part of the magic. You couldn't ruin a mystery by over-explaining it. But then one morning in early November, the sky thick with low-hanging clouds and the smell of rain in the air, something shifted. Ethan was lugging his laundry basket in with one hand balancing his sketch pad under his arm when the door swung shut behind him and nearly knocked it all loose. His socks scattered across the floor, tumbling toward the dryers. "Shit," he muttered, dropping down to scoop them up. Then slender fingers appeared beside his, picking up a pair of faded navy socks. "You always bring this much?" she asked, holding them out. He froze. She was crouched beside him, amused. He could see the corner of a worn paperback sticking out of her bag. "The bell jar this time." "Usually," he said, clearing his throat. "I hate doing small loads. Feels inefficient." She handed him the socks. "Efficient. I like that." He stood, heart thudding a little faster than expected. "I'm Ethan," he said, surprising himself. She raised an eyebrow. "Clara." Of course it would be something graceful and old-fashioned like that. They smiled, and for the first time it didn't feel like strangers exchanging politeness. It felt like something else, like a bubble of air in the middle of a dense sea of silence. They began to talk after that, not every Sunday, but often enough that it felt intentional. Small things at first: books, the weather, music, then jobs. Clara told him she owned a small used bookstore 5 blocks away. It's more for joy than profit, she said dryly. Ethan shared that he worked freelance in graphic design, mostly posters, branding, album covers when he was lucky. They talked in the space between cycles, loading, waiting, folding, never outside those walls, never exchanged numbers. It was like they both understood the rules of their strange, comforting bubble. Ethan found himself drawing her in his sketch pad one evening. Not directly, he didn't want to be creepy, but hints of her posture, the curve of her shoulder, the way her fingers rested on book pages. He didn't even show his friends. It felt like a secret, like something sacred. He noticed things too: how Clara always smelled faintly of sandalwood and old paper, how she never brought anyone with her, how her laughter was rare but genuine and always made him feel like he'd won something. Once she asked him what he liked so much about the laundromat. He thought about lying but didn't. "It's quiet," he said. "Everything's in motion, but I don't have to be. You just wait and something gets clean." She tilted her head. "You make it sound like therapy." "Maybe it is." She nodded, looking at the churning machine as if it might tell her something new. "Did you always come here?" he asked. "Since the divorce," she said simply. He waited, but she didn't elaborate and he didn't press. That was part of the unspoken deal between them. You could say things, drop pieces of your story like breadcrumbs, and the other wouldn't chase too quickly. Over the weeks, Ethan noticed how Clara rarely checked her phone, how she lingered even when her clothes were done, how she would glance toward the door when it creaked open just once before returning to her book. Maybe she was waiting for someone else, or maybe he dared to hope she wasn't. One Sunday in December, snow clung to the sidewalks, and Ethan arrived at the laundromat with his scarf wrapped up to his nose, cheeks pink from the cold. Clara was already there, her coat draped over the back of a plastic chair, a steaming coffee in her hand. She looked up when he walked in and smiled. "You always look like you're walking through a novel when it snows," she said. Ethan laughed. I was just thinking this whole place feels like the start of one, or the middle." Her eyes gleamed. They sat across from each other while their clothes churned. This time they didn't read or draw. They just talked about films, about bad dates, about the way certain songs made you remember things you wanted to forget. Clara leaned back, eventually sipping her now lukewarm coffee. "You ever feel like the world only makes sense in places like this?" she asked. "Where nobody expects anything except clean laundry." Every week. They didn't say anything for a while after that. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt like music they both understood. And just when Ethan thought the moment would end, that she'd pack up and walk away as usual, Clara looked up at him, her eyes warm and unreadable. "You always head home after this?" He blinked. "Yeah, I mean, usually." She hesitated, then slowly she said, "Maybe next week you don't." Ethan stared at her. The humming machine suddenly felt distant, like they were underwater. "You're inviting me to come home with me," she said, voice calm but eyes watching his reaction closely. "If you want to." He didn't speak for a second. He could feel the weight of the moment, the way his entire body had stilled, like time had frozen. Clara stood, pulling her coat around her shoulders. "Think about it," she said. "Next Sunday." And just like that, she walked out into the snow. The snow hadn't melted by the time the next Sunday rolled around. Ethan stood outside the laundromat, gloved hands clenched around the strap of his laundry bag, heart doing a steady, irregular drumbeat against his ribs. The street was quiet except for the occasional hiss of car tires over slush and the distant bark of a dog. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed their usual Cole song, but today they felt warmer somehow, anticipatory. Clara wasn't there yet. She always beat him by 10 minutes, always. But this Sunday she was late. Maybe she changed her mind, he thought. Maybe she regretted what she said. Maybe he misread it completely. He set his basket down and shoved quarters into a washer and tried to breathe. Last week she had asked him plainly, clearly, if he'd come home with her, but not that night, but this one. It had replayed in his mind all week, like a scene in a film he wasn't sure how to interpret. It didn't feel like seduction. It didn't feel casual. It felt vulnerable. It felt like a risk. He wasn't used to people offering him their world in a single sentence. When Clara finally walked in, her cheeks red from the wind and snowflakes melting into her scarf, she looked straight at him and smiled. "I half expected you not to show," she said. "I was here early." he replied almost offensively. She laughed softly, brushing snow from her coat as she walked toward the back. Of course you were. Their routine began, washers loaded jackets, hung vending machine, drinks acquired. But this time their usual distance felt charged tense in a way that wasn't unpleasant. Clara sat across from him as he flipped through his sketch pad, pretending to look for a particular page, when really he was just avoiding eye contact. You draw often, she asked, watching him. He shrugged. Mostly for work branding stuff, but sometimes just whatever's in my head. Ever draw people? His eyes flicked up to meet hers. Sometimes. She tilted her head. Ever draw me? Ethan hesitated. Would it be weird if I said yes? Clara smiled, slow and deliberate, only if it was unflattering. He chuckled, flipping to a page halfway through. You're kind of my favorite subject lately. He showed her a loose gestural sketch of her, sitting on the orange plastic laundromat bench, reading, the bell jar, legs crossed, coat draped behind her like a cape. It wasn't exact, but it felt like her, the mood, the quiet elegance, the unknowability of her. Clara stared at it longer than he expected. When she looked up, something in her expression had softened. You made me look like a woman who knows exactly who she is. You do, Ethan said quietly. She didn't answer right away. Sometimes. A pause hung between them, long and full of what neither of them wanted to say just yet. After their dryers finished, Clara gathered her things but didn't move to leave. Instead, she watched him pack his basket. Are you hungry? She asked. He nodded, always. There's a place around the corner. Diner, good pie, awful coffee. I like awful coffee, Ethan said. She smiled. Then come on. They walked side by side, the cold wind making their cheeks sting. It wasn't exactly a romantic stroll, but Ethan felt like they were walking into something like each step off the sidewalk was a step out of the quiet orbit they'd been circling. The diner was old-fashioned and half-empty, the kind of place where you could disappear between cracked vinyl booths and buzzing neon signs. A waitress brought them burnt coffee and mismatched mugs and menus, laminated too many times. Clara didn't bother opening hers. Cherry pie, she told the waitress, and don't warm it. Ethan ordered the same. Can I ask you something? He said after the waitress left. Only if I can say no. Last week when you asked me to come home with you, were you serious? Clara didn't flinch. Yes. Why? She sipped her coffee. Because you feel like someone I want to know more about, and because I'm tired of pretending I'm not lonely. Ethan blinked. Her honesty was a punch to the chest, gentle but firm. I don't think I've ever heard someone say that out loud. Clara smiled, not unkindly. I wasn't always this way. I used to pretend too that I was fine, that solitude was strength, but pretending gets exhausting. He nodded slowly. Yeah. The waitress returned with 2 slices of pie that looked more like small mountains. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Ethan watched Clara pick around the crust before eating at last. So, she said between bites, what about you? What's your reason for wanting to go home with me? He swallowed. Because I haven't looked forward to anything in months. Not until you. Clara didn't answer, but her foot brushed his beneath the table, and neither of them moved it away. Clara's apartment was above her bookstore, a warm, inviting space filled with overstuffed chairs, Persian rugs, and the soft scent of paper and wood polish. Plants hung in every corner. The walls were lined with books, some stacked in haphazard towers. It looked like her layered, vibrant, full of stories. Ethan stepped in and felt like he was in another world, a quieter one, a softer one. Can I take your coat? She asked. He nodded, handing it over. She walked it to a wooden rack near the door, then turned back to him. You okay? Yeah, he said, just processing. Clara walked over to a small cabinet and poured 2 glasses of red wine. We don't have to sleep together, she said plainly, in case that's where your head went. Ethan blinked. No, yes, I wasn't assuming that at all. She handed him a glass. Good, because I invited you home to get to know you. I've done the other thing before. It never ends well. They sat on the couch, knees almost touching, glasses in hand. Music played softly from a turntable in the corner, Billie Holiday, Warm and Worn. Were you in love with her? Clara asked suddenly. Ethan didn't need clarification. Yeah, he said, I think so, or I wanted to be. And she left. He nodded, said I was too quiet, said I didn't make her feel seen. Clara tilted her head. Do you think she was right? He hesitated. Maybe. Clara leaned back, her posture relaxed but her eyes sharp. You don't strike me as someone who's incapable of seeing. You just don't announce it. That can be hard for people who need fireworks all the time. He looked at her. And you, do you need fireworks? No, she said, smiling softly. I like the slow burn. They talked late into the night about books, art, the ache of being misunderstood, the thrill of being surprised by someone. Ethan told her about his childhood in upstate New York. Clara told him about the day she decided to open the bookstore instead of going back to school. By the time the wine glasses were empty and the record had long since stopped spinning, a quiet hush had settled over the room. Clara stood and stretched. You're welcome to stay, she said. The couch folds out. He looked up at her. What about you? I'll be upstairs, she said. I like to dream alone. There was no flirtation in her voice, just clarity. Ethan nodded. Thank you for all of this. She walked to the stairs, then turned back. I'm glad you said yes. He smiled. Me too. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the bookstore's large front windows. Ethan woke to the soft smell of espresso, and something sweet cinnamon maybe. He sat up on the fold-out couch, the blanket still warm from sleep, and took a breath. It didn't feel like he was in someone else's space. It felt right. Clara appeared from the kitchen, barefoot, holding 2 mugs. Morning, she said, offering him one. You snore. Lies, he said, grinning. They sat on the rug near the front window, sipping coffee, while the city woke up around them. Neither of them said much. They didn't need to. Outside, the snow had begun to melt, dripping in steady rhythm from the bookstore awning. Inside, for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt like something had started something real. It started with a shirt. Ethan had left it behind, a plain black button-up that had slipped between the cushions of Clara's fold-out couch. She found it while tucking away the blanket the next morning. Something about it, the faint scent of him, the forgottenness of it, made her pause. She folded it carefully and set it on the edge of the armrest where it waited a silent placeholder. Ethan texted later that afternoon, just a simple, hey, I think I left a shirt. Clara replied, you did, it's folded and behaving itself. He responded with a laughing emoji, you free next Sunday? She didn't answer right away, but later that night as she curled up with a book and a glass of wine, she typed back always, I've got your delicates in custody. By the time Sunday arrived, the weather had shifted, less snow, more sun. The sidewalks were dry, and the laundromat seemed a little brighter. Ethan arrived just before Clara. He had a fresh sketch pad tucked under one arm and a tote bag slung over his shoulder. Clara walked in wearing sunglasses and a long camel coat. She looked like someone from an old European film, effortless and slightly unreachable. She saw him, smiled, and held up a white paper bag. Peace offering, she said. Cinnamon croissants. Croissants make peace unnecessary, Ethan replied, holding the door open for her. They set up in their usual corner side by side, sharing pastries and sips from her thermos of real coffee, which they had both agreed was far superior to the machine's sad excuse for caffeine. Your shirt missed you, she said, pulling it out of her bag and handing it to him. Ethan held it up like a flag. Thanks, I was starting to feel lopsided. Clara tilted her head. That shirt has been through things. It's from my last job, he said. Agency life. Everyone dressed like they were pitching to ghosts. He shrugged. And now I make logos in pajama pants and work with clients I never meet. Living the dream, she said, but her voice was gentle, not mocking. He glanced at her. What about you always dreamed of owning a bookstore? Clara paused, her eyes scanning the tiled floor. Not always. I used to want to be a professor. Literature. I love the idea of students hanging on every word while I waxed poetic about James Baldwin and Virginia Woolf. What changed? I got married, she said simply, moved across the country, then moved back. Dreams get reshuffled. Ethan nodded. Do you miss it? She thought about that. Sometimes. But the bookstore gives me peace and control. No faculty politics, no tenure drama. Just me, the books, and whoever's brave enough to walk in without Googling first. Ethan smiled. You make it sound like a fortress. Clara looked at him, one eyebrow raised. Maybe it is, a soft one. Their conversation drifted, as it always did. They had a rhythm now, question, answer, silence, laughter, like jazz, improvised but intentional. Halfway through folding, Clara reached into her laundry bag and pulled out a delicate black blouse slightly torn along the seam. Ethan noticed immediately. That's fixable. Clara looked at him. You sew. He shrugged a little. My mom taught me. Said a man should always know how to mend what he breaks. Clara raised an eyebrow. Smart woman. She is, haven't seen her in a while. A beat passed. You want me to fix that? He asked, motioning to the blouse. She hesitated. It's not that important. Doesn't mean it can't be fixed. Clara looked at him differently then, like he'd said something she wasn't prepared to hear, something that nudged a locked door inside her. She folded the blouse and handed it to him. Okay, she said, fix it. That week they didn't wait until Sunday. Wednesday evening, Ethan showed up at Clara's bookstore with the blouse neatly mended in a Ziploc bag. He didn't text first, just arrived. Clara looked surprised when the bell above the door jingled and he stepped inside, snow still in his hair. I figured it deserved a personal delivery, he said, holding up the bag. She walked from behind the counter, took it, and examined the seam. It's perfect, she murmured. I matched the thread as best I could. Hope that's okay. It's more than okay, she said, still not looking at him. Do you want tea? I never say no to tea. She led him through the back of the shop to her small apartment above. Ethan had only seen it in the quiet of early morning, but now it felt different, cozy and humming with low amber light as she boiled water. He wandered. There were little details everywhere, framed black and white photos, dog-eared poetry books on windowsills, a record player humming something vintage. This wasn't just Clara's apartment. It was her sanctuary. You live in layers, he said almost to himself. She glanced over. Is that a compliment or a diagnosis? A little of both. She handed him a mug and gestured to the couch. They sat closer this time. The energy between them had shifted, less tentative, more knowing. So, Clara said, sipping her tea. What about you? Any layers I haven't seen yet? Ethan stared into his cup. I don't know. I'm not sure I've let anyone get close enough to peel them back. You let me. He looked at her. You didn't try to peel. You just waited. Silence, then Clara said, You know what I envy about you? He shook his head. You're present. Most people are just performing the version of themselves they think they're supposed to be, but you just are. That's not always a good thing, he said. It makes people uncomfortable. Clara set down her cup. I'm not uncomfortable. It was almost midnight when Ethan finally stood to leave. I should go, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Clara walked him to the door. Neither of them moved for a long moment. Can I see you again before Sunday? He asked. She smiled. That depends. On what? On whether you'll help me alphabetize the new poetry section. Ethan grinned. Consider it a date. By Friday, Ethan had spent 3 evenings in the bookstore, once sorting inventory, once drawing at a back table while Clara handled customers, and once just sitting with her after closing while rain tapped gently against the windows. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch much. But something between them was unfolding, slow, deliberate, fragile, like linen in a warm breeze, and neither of them wanted to rush it. Sunday arrived with overcast skies and a lazy chill. At the laundromat, Ethan arrived first for once. Clara joined him 5 minutes later, balancing a box of pastries in her laundry basket. Look who's early, she teased. I missed the sound of quarter machines. They settled into their routine, but something felt different, like the week had changed them, made them softer toward each other. As they sat folding clothes, Clara held up one of Ethan's shirts, the same black one from last week. I should steal this, she said. Why? So I have an excuse to make you come back. You don't need excuses, Ethan said. Clara looked at him, eyes searching. I know. That night, Ethan didn't go home after laundry. They walked aimlessly slowly until they ended up back at her apartment, shoes wet, cheeks flushed. In the warm silence of her living room, Clara turned to him. You can sleep here, she said. Not the couch this time. Ethan's breath caught. Okay. She took his hand and led him upstairs. It wasn't fast. It wasn't frantic. It was quiet and honest and gentle. And in the dark, just before they drifted to sleep, Clara whispered, You make me feel like I'm still capable of something new. Ethan squeezed her hand beneath the blanket. You are. The laundromat Matt looked the same, that Sunday hum of machines, faint smell of detergent, and warm cotton rain pattering against the glass. But Clara wasn't there. Ethan sat in their usual corner, a half-folded sweatshirt in his lap, glancing at the door at every time it had creaked open. She was never late, not once in 12 Sundays. His fingers fidgeted with the edge of a towel, but his eyes stayed locked on the entrance. After 45 minutes, he packed up and left. The clothes were still damp. She didn't answer her phone that night or Monday. By Tuesday afternoon, he was pacing outside the bookstore with a paper cup of coffee going cold in his hand. The lights inside were on, but the closed sign still hung on the door. He almost turned around, but then he saw her silhouette pass by the window. He knocked once, then again. A beat passed, then Clara opened the door just enough to look at him. Her hair was up. She looked tired, like something had settled heavy in her chest. "I didn't think you'd come," she said softly. "I did," he said. "You didn't." Clara stepped aside, letting him in without a word. The bookstore smelled of cinnamon and old pages, but it was dim. No music, no warmth. The shelves loomed taller than usual. "Are you okay?" he asked. Clara exhaled, rubbing her temple. "I didn't want to see you upset." "Upset," Ethan frowned. "I wasn't upset, I was confused." She walked to the back and sat on the worn velvet armchair near the poetry shelf. He followed. "My ex-husband called," she said abruptly, "out of nowhere. Said he was in town, wanted to talk. Closure or whatever version of that he believes in." Ethan stood still. "You saw him?" "I did, yesterday." Silence fell like dust. He ran a hand through his hair. "Did you want to?" Clara looked up at him. "I didn't know, but I couldn't ignore it. That relationship was a ghost I never fully exorcised. I thought maybe if I faced him, I'd be free of it." "And are you?" Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. She nodded. "Yes, but it made me realize how little of myself I've really let anyone see since him. Even you." He sat across from her, his expression unreadable. "I'm not asking for an apology, Clara. Just honesty." Clara reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a ring, a simple gold band. "I found this in an old box after he left," she said. "I wore it for 7 years, and when I took it off, I told myself I'd never let someone in like that again." She looked up at him, eyes glassy. "You scared me," she admitted. Ethan blinked. "I did." "Yes, because I started wanting you here in my world in the quiet parts. And I don't let people into the quiet parts." Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I get it," he said. "I do." Clara tilted her head. "I was with someone for 5 years," he continued. "I thought she was it, but she needed more noise, more color. I wasn't enough." He gave a dry chuckle. "She said I was too still, too unmoved by life, whatever that means." Clara reached for his hand. He let her take it. "I don't need someone to move fast," she whispered, "but I do need someone who stays." "I'm not running," Ethan said. "I just didn't know if you were locking the door." A pause, then Clara pulled something from behind the counter, a key small and silver. She pressed it into his palm. "For the store," she said, "in case I disappear again." He looked at the key, then at her. "I'm not here for the books," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. That night, they didn't talk much. They sat in the upstairs apartment eating soup from mismatched bowls, letting the silence do the stitching. At one point, Clara said, "He asked if I was happy." Ethan didn't look up. "What did you say?" "I said I was learning how to be." The week passed in fragments. They returned to their routine dinners, late nights, lazy afternoons sorting novels and drinking tea. But something had cracked, and they both knew it, not in a way that made things worse, just in a way that made things more real. One evening, as Ethan was sketching at the bookstore's back table, Clara sat down beside him, barefoot, holding 2 glasses of wine. He took one. "What are you drawing?" she asked. He turned the page around. It was her, not a literal version, but an impression, curved lines, soft shadows, a woman curled in a chair, half light, half shadow. "That's me," she said. He nodded. "Not just you, how I see you." She looked at the sketch a long time. "Do you see all of me?" "Not yet," he said, "but I want to." Sunday came again. A laundromat was unusually empty. A power outage had knocked out half the street, but somehow their place still buzzed. A single fluorescent light flickered above them, giving the whole room a ghostly glow. Ethan leaned against the machine, watching the spin cycle blur the colors into a vortex. You ever think about how this is all just repetition? He asked. Clara looked at him. Laundry or life? Both, he said. You load your mess, set the timer, hope it comes out cleaner. She smiled. Some things don't wash out. He nodded. But maybe they fade. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same towel. Neither pulled away. You know, Clara said I used to come here to feel invisible, like I could blend into the rhythm, disappear into the noise of machines. And now, Ethan asked, now I come here to be seen. Ethan looked at her. Really? I see you, he said. She kissed him then, not like before, slower with weight, with everything she hadn't said. And when they pulled apart, neither of them needed to fill the silence. The machines kept spinning, but they had stopped together. It had been 6 months since the first time Ethan folded socks beside Clara in that quiet laundromat on 10th Street. Now his clothes sat washed and neatly stacked on her bedroom dresser. His sketchbooks piled in the corner of her living room. Her poetry volumes had begun to migrate downstairs into his studio. They hadn't talked about moving in, not really. It just happened, like the slow drip of coffee on a cold morning, like the way fabric clings after a rinse, not by force, but because it's been softened. But not everything was soft. That morning, Clara stood by her bathroom mirror, applying mascara with a steadiness that masked the quiet storm behind her eyes. Ethan was in the kitchen making eggs, unaware that a letter had arrived the day before tucked beneath the mail. Clara hadn't opened it yet, but she knew who it was from her mother. They hadn't spoken in almost 4 years. The last time had ended in quiet disappointment, in tight smiles. There had always been an undercurrent of tension, the polite kind sharpened by unmet expectations and too many I'm fines, that really meant I don't trust you with the truth. Clara sighed and dropped the mascara back into its drawer. She didn't want to ruin the morning, not yet. Ethan flipped the eggs onto plates, pouring fresh coffee into mismatched mugs, the kind of domestic normalcy he used to think only existed in commercials. Soft jazz, warm light, the quiet rustle of Clara's feet behind him as she entered the room. You're up early, he said. Clara kissed his cheek. Couldn't sleep. He noticed the tightness around her mouth, the faint strain in her voice. Everything okay? She nodded too quickly. Just bookstore inventory on my mind. They sat at the small table, steam rising from their mugs. Ethan, ever observant, said nothing, but he saw her, saw the way she picked at her food, the way her eyes stayed unfocused. Clara finally broke the silence. I got a letter. He put down his fork. From my mother. Ethan leaned back. Is that good? She hesitated. It's unexpected. He waited. She's coming to town. Wants to meet. Says she misses me. Clara's voice didn't waver, but her hands trembled slightly. She doesn't know about us, she added. Do you want her to? Ethan asked. I don't know, Clara said. I don't know if I want her approval or if I'm just afraid of not having it. Ethan reached across the table, took her hand in his. You don't owe her anything you're not ready to give. Clara looked at him. But I do owe me. I've hidden so much of who I am for so long. You've seen more of me in 6 months than she has in 10 years. Then maybe, Ethan said gently, this is your chance to stop hiding. The next day, Clara met her mother at a cafe near the old library. She didn't bring Ethan. She needed this one-on-one, raw and unfiltered. Her mother wore pearl earrings in a beige blazer, always composed, always curated. Clara sat down, heart pounding like a dryer full of sneakers. Her mother smiled tightly. You look well. So do you, Clara replied. There was small talk, weather flights, books. Then her mother sipped her tea and said, your father would have liked to see you again before he passed. Clara's throat tightened. He never asked. That's not true. Clara stared at her. He never asked me. A long silence stretched between them. I didn't write to argue, her mother said. I wrote because I've been thinking about you, about us, about the way things ended. They didn't end, Clara said. They just drifted. Her mother set her cup down. And now, Clara took a breath. I'm seeing someone, she said. His name's Ethan. He's younger than me, kind, quiet, brilliant in his own way. And I'm happy. Her mother didn't flinch, but Clara saw the subtle clench of her jaw. How much younger? She asked evenly. 11 years. A pause then. Is that wise? I didn't come here for advice, Clara replied. I came because I'm tired of pretending I don't need love, or that I'm not worthy of it because it doesn't come wrapped the way you expected. Her mother looked out the window. I just worry about you, she said finally. No, you worry about the version of me you wanted, but she's gone. Another silence, then slowly her mother said, may I meet him? Clara blinked. Yes, she said, but only if you meet me too. Ethan didn't expect to meet Clara's mother that week, but when she told him, he simply nodded. Where? Dinner, Clara said. Here. He smiled. Should I bring wine or a copy of The Feminine Mystique? She laughed, relieved. Just be you. The dinner was quiet, not hostile, not warm, just tense. Clara's mother asked polite questions. Ethan answered with quiet confidence, never oversharing, never retreating. Clara watched him like he was a flame, both calming and consuming. After one dessert, her mother excused herself to make a phone call outside. Clara followed. Well, she asked, arms crossed. Her mother sighed. He's not what I expected, but I see why you're drawn to him. Clara studied her, and her mother hesitated then. And maybe that's enough. That night, as Ethan and Clara sat on the couch, his head on her shoulder, she said softly, I didn't expect her to say that. Ethan didn't answer right away then. I think people can surprise us even when we think we've got them figured out. Clara smiled faintly. That includes you. He looked up. Me? I never thought I'd fall in love again, she said. And certainly not like this. Ethan reached for her hand. I never thought love could be so still, he said. Like folding laundry, like drinking tea, like silence with meaning. They sat like that a long time. Then Clara whispered, Are you staying? Ethan's fingers curled around hers, always. The next Sunday they went to the laundromat together, but this time it wasn't about clothes. Ethan carried a new painting, a watercolor he'd done of the laundromat's exterior, warm and moody, with little details that only someone who knew it would notice. He handed it to the owner, a woman named Gwen, who smiled and shook her head. You two, most romantic damn thing to ever happen in here. They hung the painting by the front window just beside the soap vending machine. On the back, Ethan had signed it. We met at the laundromat every Sunday until she asked me to come home with her. Clara leaned into him, hand on his chest. You know what this means, right? She asked. He smirked. That we need a new ritual. She thought for a moment. Brunch. He smiled. Brunch sounds perfect. They left the laundromat hand in hand, the door chiming behind them, the sky breaking into soft gold. And somewhere between the soap bubbles, old wounds, gentle touches, and whispered truths they had washed away. What was and made space for what could be not perfect, not pressed, smooth, but permanent. The story of Ethan and Clara reveals a profound life lesson. True connection blooms in the quiet spaces where we dare to be our authentic selves. Their love began not with grand gestures, but in the mundane rhythm of a laundromat, where silence, shared glances, and small acts of kindness wove their bond. Clara's courage to invite Ethan into her world despite past wounds teaches us that vulnerability is a strength that opens doors to healing and hope. Ethan's willingness to stay, to see her beyond the surface, reminds us that love thrives on presence, not perfection. Their journey shows that life's deepest relationships often grow from patience, honesty, and the bravery to let someone see the unpolished parts of our soul. In a world obsessed with noise and instant gratification, this story calls us to cherish the slow burn of genuine connection, to value the people who stay through our doubts, and to trust that love can find us when we least expect it. Let Ethan and Clara's story inspire you to embrace the beauty of life's simple moments and to build bridges with those who make you feel truly seen. What moved you most about Ethan and Clara's story? How has a quiet moment shaped your own connections? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If this tale touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to join our community of dreamers and storytellers. Your support keeps these heartfelt stories alive. Let's create more moments of hope together.